Okay, so we've gone over what debt suits are, how they work, and how they can mess you up. We have two shorter steps to go now. First, let's talk about what it means to win, and then we'll show you how we can help you do that. Remember how we talked about losing? You started with a judgment against you for $1,000, and it turned out to be much more in money and other things. Winning is the same way. You keep them from collecting, yes, but there's much, much more. And like the cost of losing, the invisible gains of winning are probably more important, far more important. Defending yourself is a process. You learn a ton of stuff. People who join us will probably know more about debt law than almost anybody by the time they get done, including lawyers that they'll ever meet. And that's a lot to say, you know. You will know something as well as almost any expert, something that impacts your life and situation, and you'll know how to use it. But it isn't just learning facts, it's learning that you can go into court. Nervous, yes. Afraid, maybe. I never completely lost any of that. And you can do what you set out to do. You can make your arguments, hear theirs, and respond. In other words, you learn something important about yourself too, and about your own potential. You won't always win the argument, but you will always win back that part of you that used to chicken out and let things happen to you, your self-respect. It's a big step back towards where you always wanted to be. This starts when you begin defending yourself, and it doesn't depend on your winning. It's like taking your place in the world back for yourself. Those are all the things that you get for fighting, just for fighting, win or lose. And that's important because sometimes, even when you do everything right, you still lose. Anybody who tells you differently is trying to rip you off. But the more things you do right, the better your chances are of winning. And if you win, winning is amazingly sweet. You'll be shocked at the weight it takes off of your shoulders, at the sense of vindication, the excitement, the best feeling in the world. If you were being sued for $5,000 and you needed 50 hours of work to win, it's a lot like getting paid $100 per hour for the time that you spend, tax-free. Only it's better than that because you also get to clear your credit report and have all those other advantages we were talking about. Call me petty, but it's also nice to stick it in the face of the people who are trying to take what little you have away from you. And your victory helps others who are like you from people who are like the people who attacked you. For some, it's the step that protects the comeback they've worked so hard for. And for others, it's the beginning of that comeback. Whatever I say about winning, you're going to find that it's just a pale picture of what the real thing is. So, how can your legal leg up help you get there? What should you do next? Well, you know, we can't give you legal advice. We won't write stuff for you or tell you what to do. If you've been paying attention, you already know that that isn't what we're about. So what can we do? Well, the story of our products is also the story of your lawsuit. So I'm going to tell you about those products. And I want you to hear, you don't need to hear it as an advertisement for the products because that's not what this is about. But I want you to think in terms of what comes up during a lawsuit, okay? And all the stuff that we talk about on here, you know, in terms of products, they're still there. And you could get any one of them if you wanted, or, you know, all of them if you wanted. But I'm here to tell you about something new. So listen to the story of our products, please, and then I'll show you how we're pulling them together for you to change things in a big way and make, you know, and give you a much better chance of defending yourself. Remember how I said the first thing a debt lawyer would do for you is look at your case, evaluate it and your chances, and start to map out a strategy? We have a product that does that called Case Evaluation. We look at the suit filed against you, ask some basic questions about the way you were served, and point out areas we think you'll want to explore. We can't tell you what to do since that would be legal advice, but we can make specific suggestions about issues that might or will be important in your case. This will help ground you in your defense and get you past that first question that stops so many people. What do I do? We point you in the right direction and give you a push off the starting block. For so many, this is the help that they never get. Because litigation is such a new world to so many people, and because the debt business is so strange and monstrous, we have the Debt Defense Litigation Manual, which is another product. In 2008, when we started Your Legal Leg Up, we started with an earlier version of the Debt Defense Litigation Manual. Of course, it's bigger now and integrated with the website. The manual itself is about 250 pages long, but the links include much, much more, of course. Together, they tell the story of the debt litigation business, some of which I've told you about earlier in part of this video, but much more in depth. We talk about the parties, the interests, the laws, and the process. The litigation manual was intended to be all that anyone ever needed to defend himself or herself against the debt collectors. In a way, it could still get you started so that you could pick up the rest that you need on your own without having to hire a lawyer. But litigation takes so much more than an academic understanding. Lots of people won with our litigation manual, but it was a lot of work. And a lot of people called me, not for information so much as encouragement. But yes, the debt collectors changed their tricks, so they needed information too. Of course they did. So we took the next steps. We knew that debt collectors pretty much all follow the same pattern in debt litigation as long as they stay in it. And you're going to see the same thing in your case. A lot of them will drop out at various points, it's true, but as long as they stay in, you're going to need to write up discovery, every bit of which is going to be objected to. They will object to everything. And to make them give it to you, you're going to need to go through what we call the motion to compel cycle. That means you're going to have to talk to them, write them, and ultimately create a motion to compel to make them give you the stuff. So we created the motion to compel pack. Next in their bag of tricks comes the debt collector's motion for summary judgment. And they may present the court with a list of what they call non-contested facts and ask the court to rule on the case immediately. This is a very dangerous time for pro se defendants. Defending against motions for summary judgment is critically important, since if you lose the motion, you lose the whole case. And it's hard. It requires legal analysis, putting facts together and into form that the court will consider, tearing down their arguments, and making your own arguments. The debt collector's motions are all pretty similar to each other, but they're new to you, and the process of responding is complicated. So we created our motion for summary judgment pack. There were a couple of other places where pro se defendants tend to get tripped up. I'm sure you know that a big majority of people being sued never answer or respond to the lawsuit at all. And sometimes the right thing to do is to move to dismiss the suit. So we created a package that addressed that possibility. As a side note, I usually discourage people from going that way because they're rarely successful, but that's a different question. But when people don't respond at all, the debt collector gets a judgment called a default judgment, which allows them to garnish your wages and bank accounts. You might be able to stop that with a motion to vacate the default judgment, and doing that would let you basically start over and defend yourself. So we created a motion to vacate pack. As you can see, we have lots of materials for different legal situations. We have a report on common weaknesses of debt buyers, 3 weaknesses almost every debt collector has, and how you can use them to win, for example. A report on what assignment contracts are for debt buyers and why they mean so much. Materials on legal research and analysis. And we have packages designed to help you with pretrial evidentiary motions, another one to help you bring a motion for summary judgment if you want to, or a cross motion for summary judgment if they happen to have brought their motion for summary judgment first and you want to bring one against them. But what was missing in all of this was some sort of continuing guidance. The way lawsuits develop is that something happens requiring intense action to respond. Then there's a silent period that can seem like a long time, and then something else happens. If you've been involved in a couple of lawsuits, you know how this goes, and you know the need to keep working on the case, even during those apparent lulls in action. People who haven't been involved in a lawsuit before need to know that the quiet periods don't necessarily mean that nothing is happening. There's always stuff to do, and the amount of time is, anyway, never more than you need. They can help. People can need help at critical times, and they can need help just staying motivated and not too discouraged, because the debt collectors do things that will discourage, bore, and annoy you at every step. And thus we created memberships and teleconferences to give people a chance to ask questions and get answers in real time. Suppose you want to know what a debt collector is up to when he provides some special notification to the court, or you wonder whether you can or should ask for certain information in your own discovery. We have a gazillion laws, and they take up a gazillion pages, but it's rare to find anything that clearly and specifically addresses any specific question you're going to ask. Legal analysis is all about figuring which particular things apply to any specific situation. What is important and how important is it? Does it help to talk those things through with someone who's specialized in this particular branch of law for 15 years? I don't really need to answer that question for you, do I? I can't give you legal advice, but I can suggest things to look for, possible strategies, defenses, weaknesses, sources. There's always doubt in litigation. That's inevitable when dealing with human conflict and human decision makers. We can reduce that doubt. You can worry about saying what you need to say rather than whether you need to say it or not, or when. That's what our memberships do for you with the teleconferences. And there's one other thing that they do. If you're being sued and have done anything at all in your defense, you may have noticed that there's a lot of routine stuff to do. You may have to make and file an answer, or you will have to make and file an answer, have to draft and send interrogatories, requests for documents, requests for admissions. You got to push for answers, deal with motions, and prepare for trial. There's a lot. And a lot of it is, frankly, boring and repetitive. Not for the debt collector. They've already done it before. Well, it's probably still boring even when you've done it, when all you're doing is downloading something similar and making changes to it. But boring for a debt collector means that a lawyer doesn't do it, a paralegal does, at a fraction of the cost. And that's an advantage for that the debt collectors have, as I've pointed out elsewhere. Our membership gives you some of those things. We have a bunch of things that have been written for lots of different situations. So it reduces some of the tedium, anxiety, and annoyance of the whole thing. Some. You may have noticed that I've written a lot of articles and even books on the subject of debt law, and I've made hundreds of videos as well. The videos and articles are housed on our website, yourlegalligout.com. That is free for anybody to use, and there's also quite a bit of stuff that is for members only. So that's kind of an evolving benefit of membership as well. Everything I've mentioned is still there and available at our site if you want it. But we have a new program that's going to be available for the next 40 days or so, till February the 15th, 2020 at least. I say the full date because although the new program may become the standard in the future, and this may be it, right? But I don't know that yet. The information on this video, however, will be helpful. As you've noticed, it goes through the major events of your lawsuit. So it's going to be helpful whenever you see it. So I'll leave it up, even if the program that this thing is about is discontinued. Fair? Now let me just tell you a little bit about running a business for people with debt problems, so you can understand why I'm about to make the offer that I'm going to make. It's not that I've lost my senses or anything like that. It won't surprise you to learn that people being sued for debt face at least two problems, maybe three or more, depending on how you count them. First, you have a dire emergency. A lawsuit has been filed against you and it has a due date that isn't forgiving. If you've been served, you probably have only a couple of weeks to respond. Second, most people being sued for debt don't have a ton of money, either hanging around or coming in every month. Most people watching this are on a tight budget, and that's just a fact of life, right? To put that in its simplest terms relating to our services, you can't easily pay me a lot now or a lot by monthly payment. So any price I set for anything has to take those realities into account. Our current membership plus product setup, where you get a membership plus a discount on those specific products that you eventually need, is an attempt to deal with that situation. But to be very blunt, I'm not satisfied with it. In my opinion, anybody who's being sued needs all of our materials or something like them. I don't know that, I don't think anybody else is offering anything like them. And not nearly everybody who needs them is getting them. So that's the first thing that bugs me. Not enough people are fighting back. And the second thing is that I think almost anybody who needs any of what we've got is going to, may very well end up needing all of what we're offering. You could see that from the way I told you about how our products evolved, right? But it haunts me, both as a business person and a fighter for justice, that a lot of people who need stuff have to cut corners. That can be disastrous. My goal has always, right from the beginning, been to reach a point where people didn't have to do that. This program is going to take a big step in that direction. It's going to offer the most I have ever offered at the lowest price, by far.